Welcome back to ThinkTech Talks. I'm Jay Fidell. Here we are in the Tuesday block 1 to 2, talking with Rick I, who's with BlueCanWater.com, talking to us from California, from Los Angeles. And in fact, we're putting him on our Skype map because we have a map of all the Skype connections we've ever made, and it's really populating the globe right now. Rick I, welcome to ThinkTech.
Thank you very much, Jay. Thank you.
I'd like to call this show I Can, You Can, Blue Can, because we were talking about taking action before, then you are taking action, and your company is Blue Can. And what exactly is Blue Can, Rick I?
Well, Blue Can is a water company. We provide water in aluminum cans that look like this, basically. Size of a Coke can. It's in an aluminum can instead of as an alternative to plastic water bottles.
Well, that's saying something. There are plastic water bottles all around the globe. I mean, wherever you go, there is plastic water. And you get the feeling that it's more, not less, that everybody is drinking from plastic water bottles. I was telling you before the show about my experience in China. I think it was in Shanghai. And
right.
We were visiting a conference there, and it was a big deal, and they had a band, and the band was, 50 musicians or more, and every one of them had a little water bottle down on the pavement next to them, because I guess you couldn't get a drink of fresh water unless you had a water bottle with you. And you go everywhere, it's all water, and people like water. They drink water more than they did. You almost wonder what happened to soda these days, everybody drinking water. However, there's not enough water. Tell us about it.
Well, yeah, water is actually bypassed sodas and other beverages in its growth. It's growing more rapidly for the consumer than any other beverage, actually. And of course, water, everybody knows water is vitally important for life. Without water, we don't have any life at all. But the problem is fresh water, fresh drinking water. Even the water in water bottles today is typically in some ways contaminated with either the plastic that it's contained in, BPA, or other plastics that are harmful. And sunlight and heat brings those plastics out and puts them into the water. Or the plastic just eventually becomes a poison to the environment in the oceans, in the ground, in the groundwater, in our food supplies. It's got to stop. I mean, I'm not a tree hugger. My partner is. He's more of about the environment, about karma, about things coming around, going around. I'm just an ex-Marine sergeant trying to get things done. And we came to a point where we decided we had to do something, and this was our solution.
Can you hold that can of water up again one more time?
Absolutely.
I'd like to just point out that there's no label on it. It doesn't say anything about it. And what's your reasoning on that?
Well, we sell them like if you go to Costco, you buy a package of stuff, and there are 12 of them in a box, and the label on the box tells you all about it and all the information. But inside the box, you take one out and it's white and it might have a couple words on it, but not very much at all. This is Blue Can water. I mean, it's self-explanatory. It says what it does. Probably in the next batches we run, we'll put water on the side of it and minimal water and maybe a barcode. But we don't intend to sell them these by single cans. The single can retails is a different product that will come out next January, February.
Oh, so you're selling them in larger volume. How are you selling them? How many at a time?
It's a case at a time. There's 24 cans in a case, and they're primarily designed this first outing for us to get into the marketplace. Since our water is placed in aluminum cans and it's pressurized with nitrogen gas, so it pushes all the oxygen out. And it's purified water, less than 1 part per million of dissolved solids, which is some of the purest water you'll ever taste. And the reason we put it in the can is to keep it fresh for a long time. We push out the oxygen with the nitrogen gas, which keeps it fresh, because without oxygen, things don't decay. And then the water is very, very pure. So there's no acid or anything in the water to corrode the interior of the can or the can itself. So we've got a 50-year pure water guarantee on each can of our water.
Mm-hmm. You said, no label interests me. I mean, if I went to a grocery store, there'd be a label on bloody everything there, and it would say, in this case, 0 sugar, 0 potassium, 0 this and 0 that. We have nothing here but pure water. Are you not obligated to say that in some place?
You are on the packaging and on the retail of the product. We don't sell our cans individually. You can't go into a store and buy a single can. We sell it by the case for people that want to prepare for emergencies. Our goal is to get individuals to buy the cases and put them away. Each person requires about 74 ounces a day, and it's roughly a 6-pack of our water. So one case provides one person 4 days worth of water in an emergency. So you should have cases in your car, in your office, at your home for your family and friends. And then our primary goal is to place containers, large shipping containers full of 10,000 or more cans behind fire departments, schools, and civic centers around the world, so that when a disaster occurs, pre-staged water already exists. If you look at the disasters of Katrina and Sandy and now in the Philippines, the first thing people say, the first thing people need is water. They're out of water because the water's contaminated, the water's shut off. Water in water bottles at the grocery stores, the shelves are empty within hours. I was in the Northridge earthquake in 1994. The next morning at 6:30, we went out and tried to find bottled water because we only had a couple gallons in a 5-gallon jug in the house. And literally there were no water in any store. It was all gone, all gone. And it's got to be pre-staged in order for it to be effective.
Boy, that's scary. Going back to the water itself, you say it's pure. How exactly do you get this water? How do you get it so that it is pure? What assurance do you have that it is pure?
Well, that's absolutely an important question. Water by the FDA standards are qualified under 4 or 5 different levels. You can have spring water, mineral water, artesian water, and purified water, or filtered water, they call it. Sometimes it's called filtered drinking water. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's our category. With the spring and the mineral and the other waters, you have to provide in the bottle exactly what came out of the spring. You're not allowed to take spring water out and then put things into it or take things out of it. It has to have up to 250 parts per million of dissolved solids from the spring in the water in order to be called spring water, mineral water, and all these other waters. So whatever's in the water, that's what you're drinking out of the spring. They, of course, check for bacteria, and they check for E. coli and chloroform, things like that. But it's still spring water. What we do, I wanted to be able to make our water as pure as it could possibly be made. Mm-hmm. And the only way to do that is to start with municipal water. So in the San Fernando Valley, we start with municipal water, tap water, if you were, coming right out of the tap. And with that water, I can do anything to it I want to, as long as I don't put anything poison into it. So what we do is we take everything out of it. We run it through a water softening system. Then we run it through active charcoal and coral layers of it so that it filters out anything in the water, the first layers of bacteria and particles and things. Then we do a reverse osmosis under high pressure. All this is done under about 80 pounds of pressure. And this way, under high pressure, we can use smaller grains of charcoal. We can use smaller filters in the reverse osmosis system. And then we have 6 traps. And these traps start to trap the particles, the dissolved solid particles in the water, from 25 parts per million all the way down to 1 part per million. And then we, of course, put it in a tank. We ozone it. And ozoning it kills the final bacteria that lives below 0.22 microns. That's the smallest possible.
How do you ozone something?
Well, you have ozone generators. An ozone generator generates an ozone layer, and this ozone gas, actually, it's a form of oxygen, and this ozone gas goes into the water, is put into the water as it goes by and added to the water. Ozone dissolves in water, but as it dissolves, it kills any bacteria or anything that lives in the water. It's better than chlorine. A lot of the large companies, the water districts, are now starting to ozone rather than chlorine and all the other chemicals, because ozone, even though it's more expensive, is far more complete at purifying something. So once we've ozoned it, we put it into the big tank, and the tank is ozoned to circulate the ozone and oxygen into the water. Then as it comes back out, it's run through a final single micron trap. It's UV light, and then it's ozoned again as it goes into the can to purify the can, so that the can doesn't have any bacteria or anything from the manufacturing process in the lid. And then it's sealed with nitrogen gas under high pressure, under about 40 pounds of pressure. That's why the can feels solid. And there's no CO2 in the can. It's not sparkling water. It's flat water. But it doesn't taste flat. When you pop it open, like, listen to this.
Making me thirsty. Yeah.
I know. And it's just like sounds like a soda. So kids love it. You put these in a refrigerator and kids just go crazy over them because they think it's sweet. It doesn't have any sodium in it, so it's not salty. So when they drink it, their brain says, oh, this is sweet, this is good. And they'll drink 3 of them in a row just like that.
You know, you talked about the hydrogen packing, and it struck me that you want to take the oxygen out because the oxygen would allow for some sort of process with any kind of material that was left in the water.
That's right.
But what kind of materials, after all that processing, you know, with the ozone and everything else, what kind of material can be left in the water?
Nothing. It's actually H2O. It's literally just H2O. And when you drink it, you get this instant feeling of hydration. It's a rapid hydration that is a side effect of the water, because normally when you drink water, you drink a bottle of water, it has up to 500 parts per million of dissolved solids. It's got sodium in it that they often put into it just to make it so that it has a taste to it, a flavor. And it's just, I'm talking about bottled water, just plain old bottled water. Now, what happens is when you drink this, it has to be digested. The H2O, before it goes into your blood, it doesn't want all that other crap. It just wants water, right? H2O. So what happens, your body has to digest it. Most of your hydration comes from the lower tract in your stomach, because that's where the water is finally digested to the point where it can be absorbed into the bloodstream. With our water, the moment you drink it, you feel a tickle in the back of your throat, and you get this kind of a lift because you're hydrated almost instantly.
Because of the purity.
Because of the purity, yeah.
So,
and one of the side effects I haven't been able to get rid of is you drink a can of our water, most people typically within 15 minutes have to pee. I mean, it's a side effect I can't get rid of.
It goes right through them, eh?
It's right. It literally goes right through.
Well, it must have all kinds of health benefits, and you know, first, I'm going to take a break in a minute. But first, you mentioned that you buy this in, you know, a pack of say 24 of them, and you implied or you indicated that soon enough it'll be on the grocery store shelf.
After the first,
And what's the cost, either in the larger pack or in the grocery store shelf?
Well, the 24 pack is sold on the internet at several locations. BlueCanWater.com can direct you to that. And for emergency water primarily, a 24 pack typically sells for around $27 to $30. The cost to put water in an aluminum can is about 8 to 9 times more than if put it in a plastic bottle. A plastic bottle, just the container itself, costs less than a half a cent for a manufacturer, and we could do that, but we'd be contaminating the world more, and you know, we'd make money at it, but that's not why we're doing this. This can cost us about 10 times what a plastic bottle costs, just the aluminum. And the reason is, if you look at aluminum and the recyclability of aluminum, it kind of tells the whole story. A ton of plastic, your plastic bottles that you take, is only worth to the recycler about $80, $86, something in that range, according to the market. A ton of glass is only worth about $26. A ton of aluminum cans to the recycling company is actually worth about $1,550. So it's the aluminum that pays for the recycling of paper, cardboard, glass, plastic, everything.
Rick, let's take a minute. I want to come back and deal in greater detail about the aluminum and the contrast between the different kinds of containers. We're going to take a very short break. That's Rick I of BlueCanWater.com. We're talking about ICAN, UCAN, and BlueCan here today. He's in Los Angeles, and we're in touch with him by Skype. This is ThinkTech Talks. I'm Jay Fidell. We'll be right back after this break.
We want to thank our underwriters. Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High-Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Hori. Thanks so much for joining us on ThinkTech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
Okay, we're back. We're live with Rick I. That's E-I-E-Y-E. He's with bluecanwater.com, and we're talking about I Can, You Can, and Blue Can. He's in Los Angeles, and he joins us by Skype here on ThinkTech Talks. So we talked about, you began talking about the aluminum cans, and I wonder if you could compare them with the standard can, which I guess it's not the same thing, that I buy my soda in. What's the difference, and why do you choose aluminum?
Well, actually, it is identical. We buy our cans like, here's a Coke can, and this Coke can is identical in aluminum to this blue can.
Okay. It looks like it's the same design too.
Yeah, it's pretty much, there's several manufacturers, but they all produce it in exactly the same way, and it's pretty much the same shape and size and weight.
Now, how do you actually put your water into the can? Do you do it yourself, or do you send it out, so to speak?
No, we have we built an entire facility. We bought a water purification system for about $50,000 that actually purifies the water for us from the municipal tap water, and goes through that process we were just discussing. And then we bought the canning machines, the machines that actually take empty aluminum cans, and we buy them from a manufacturer. We have them paint them blue for us, our blue, it's our color blue, particular Pantone color that we have. And we receive all of those in our warehouse. And then we put the cans into the assembly line, and the bottling machine actually takes our water and fills a certain amount, a very specific amount, into each of the cans. And then it ozones the water in can. Then it puts the nitrogen gas under high pressure as the lid goes on. And as the lid goes on, it's sealed onto the can and crimped on, actually. And then the can is fully pressurized and ready to go. And then it goes down the assembly line and is boxed and shipped out.
I've seen the, just a moment to dwell on the Hawaii deep sea water. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but in the Big Island, there's a pipe that goes down, I don't know, thousands of feet, and it picks up what people consider to be very special water because it really hasn't been disturbed in, millennia. And this water is it's salt water, of course, but then it's processed into fresh water, retains the special character of the deep sea water, and it is sold in large quantities in Japan. And they have a bottling facility. That's the wrong word. I don't know exactly what they.
That's the right word. That's the right word.
Yeah. Are you familiar with it? I mean, what's the?
Yes, well, it's a great product, and where you get your water. Water is an amazing element. It's got so many miracle qualities to it. Water has by most accounts, if you talk to anybody that's really dealt with it in large for a long time, water has a memory. Water is like little magnets. Each molecule of oxygen and hydrogen is a magnet. You have a positive side and a negative side, and they link together and chain together in groups and globs and clusters, they're called. And these clusters form memories. That's why when a snowflake forms, it forms in the various shapes that it forms in, which are crystalline type shapes, because the structure of the water causes that to form that way. Not the wind and the ice and all that. It's the structure of the water that causes it to form in these crystalline structures. So water has this wonderful capacity to remember what it was and how much it's been used and when's the last time it was dinosaur pee. And water, it doesn't go away. It's recycled. We've been recycling this same water for billions of years. You know, it's been used by all the animals on the planet and food and trees and everything else and rain, and it comes back down again. And that water at the bottom of the ocean, it's about 2,500 feet, if I remember correctly, in Hawaii, that they pull out and then they desalinate it. This water has a very unique structure to it. It hasn't gone through the plant cells recently, which breaks down water in clusters. It hasn't gone through animals recently. So it's got this under high pressure in the ocean. So that means the clusters have formed in special ways. So it's a special water that retains the memory of where it lived before. And when you can it, or bottle it, whatever it's all called bottling, by the way. But when you put it into a package and resell it after it's been desalinated and purified, it retains some of that, and you can feel it in your body, and you can tell it in the taste.
Gosh, she reminds me of wine, you know,
Yeah,
for high quality and a good experience and all that, and you want to know where your water came from.
Exactly. Water is not just, oh God, it's just water. It's not just water. It really is. It matters how many parts per million of dissolved particles are in it, how much uranium's in it, how much chloroform, how much E. coli, how much all this other bacteria and stuff is in it, but also where it came from and how we play classical music in our warehouse because water seems to like classical music.
Now there's a takeaway for our show. I mean, it's like plants; they like music too.
Exactly. Water clusters. There's a Japanese professor. I cannot remember his name. I'm trying to. That has done studies with water and music and then frozen it and then take the slides and look at the crystals, and rock music causes, and really loud bombarding music, you know, that kind of makes your nervous system feel bad. Well, the reason it makes your nervous system kind of weird and makes you anxious is because you're 90% water.
Well, you know, this takes me to something I know that you want to talk about, and that is the water situation on the planet. You know, we hear little pieces of this, and in Hawaii, we hear that one day we're probably going to need desalination, and we hear that water is going to be more important than oil, and sometime soon. What's your take on it, and how does that affect your thinking on this product? Well,
we already know that water costs more than gasoline. If you don't believe me, go buy a couple bottles of water at 7-Eleven. Water is a limited resource. This is not a resource that is unlimited and it comes from the sun and you know, you grow plants with. Water is a limited resource, especially fresh water. Of the water on our planet today, and our planet is like 60% water, covered with water, and some of it very deep, but it's salt water. It's the fish swimming around in it and doing other things in it. But that water is not consumable without an enormous expense to desalinate it and clean it up. The drinking water is less than 1% of the water that's available on our planet. That's actual water that could be drank. Mm-hmm. However, most of that is in the ice. That's in the ice caps of the Arctic and Antarctic, and it's frozen and in miles thick ice caps. And so what we have is less than 1% of the drinking water is really available for us to drink. And that's what's in rivers and streams and springs and things like that. Water tables that are under our feet. There are actual lakes, water tables underneath the ground all over the world. Mm-hmm. Some bigger and some smaller. In parts of India and Africa, those water tables are being drained by commercial businesses that have done contracts with the local governments, and they're pulling that water out as fast as they can. And where you used to be able to dig 20 feet in some parts of India in order to dig a well and have your own water, 50 years ago, 20 feet you could dig. Today, you have to dig about 250 feet in order to get to any kind of damp mud at all. And the water tables are being thrown away. You know that water has become a commodity. Right now, there are countries on the planet who buy fresh water from large continents, from governments, and put it into big bladders like a tanker would on the sea. And these big bladders are bigger than tankers. And they ship these big bladders over to Saudi Arabia and other places in Israel, in order to provide them with fresh water, which they have a limited supply of. So water has become a commodity. And as we move through time now, water is going to become more and more of a commodity. There are contracts even in the United States with certain cities that bottling water companies have made contracts with the cities to be able to supply all the water they want, and then they limit the supply of water to the people in those cities. What we plan on doing is we're building factories. We're currently in negotiations with Bangladesh and with other countries in Africa that we're talking to build plants that desalinate the water, the seawater, very similar to what you're talking about in Hawaii. And then we bring it in and we purify it like we do our water. And then we put it in our aluminum cans and we send it out into the community. That way it provides not only drinking water for the community, but also a resource for the community. They can collect the cans, bring them back, and get money for them. So people that have no income at all, a few dollars makes a world of difference and can actually save a life. And we take part of the water that we're desalinating and we just reverse osmose it, and we put that out into a reservoir in the back of the plant, and that water is used for agriculture and for the local communities. And we're in discussions with several communities around the world to start building those plants. And we have to start putting the water back into the water table, and that's what that does. It takes salt water, desalinates it, puts it back into the water table and into the community. And if we don't do that, we're all going to run out of water right now they're estimating by 2030, water will be at a price that you won't be able to buy it with the gold in your pocket. And by 2050, water will be at 1/10 the water that we have today is drinkable.
Well, but I'm wondering about, all things being equal, hard to argue with that, just given the way the trajectory is working. But won't we have technology that will take, say, seawater and desalinate it very cheaply? Won't we have ways to bring in, water that's not pure and make it pure, such that it becomes cheaper to replenish what we lose?
Yes, we have the technology today. Yes, we are creating new technologies, but it costs, ask Dubai. Ask Dubai how much they spent for the desalination plant that they put up. And it was close to $200 billion.
Oh.
What we're going to be doing is gasoline is going to be replaced by water as the dominant commodity on the planet. And it will cost you 10 times as much for a bottle of water as it costs today. And if we keep putting them in bottles, the water is so contaminated with plastic that we won't be able to use the water tables that exist, because the water tables are being contaminated by the landfills, which are 70% plastic bottles.
I want to talk about that. I want to talk about how the plastic bottles, affect the environment going forward. But before we leave this subject and before we go to the next break in a minute, I wonder if there's any way that I can hedge the bet. If I believe that fresh water is going to be that dear in relatively short time, what can I do to avoid being a victim of the marketplace? Should I fill my bathtub? Should I, build a big garage in the back and put blue can water there? What can I do in order to avoid being caught in the stampede?
Well, pre-staging water, and emergency water, like you're talking about, filling the bathtub, or putting barrels of water on your property or in your garage and then putting chemicals in it every 3 months to keep it so it's safe to drink. That's for emergencies. That's for when an earthquake occurs, or when there's a blackout, or when the water main breaks in your local area. You know that 20% of the electricity in the United States is used to push water around, so that if there is a cascading failure of transformers in the electrical grid, the first thing that we lose is water. And we won't have it coming out of our tap. We won't have it going to the trucks to go to nothing. The plants can't make it. They can't put it. So the point is, yes, you can put those waters away, but you're not going to be able to put it away for the future of you, your children, or your kids. What we have to do as a humanity, as a being living on this planet and using water, we have to work toward conserving our fresh water. And that means do what Las Vegas does. Las Vegas is very constrained by water. So the casinos were forced to use what's called gray water from showers and water faucets and washing dishes in their casinos. They process that water and use it for gardening, and they use it for the fountains. They're not allowed to use direct fresh water for that. They have to reuse their water. We have to learn to reuse our water and not waste it in the way that we're wasting it away today. And then we have to put in legislature that controls the water and captures the water. Do you know that I only know the statistics locally here, but in Santa Monica, in Malibu area, there's 2,500 acre feet of water, which is about something on the order of 20 million gallons a day flow into the ocean. And this is fresh water from flowing off the sides of the mountains and from the rainwater and wash water going through. It's 1/4 of the amount of water that one of the water districts uses every year. I mean, it's an enormous amount of wasted water that should be captured, should be purified, and should be put back into the system.
We're going to take a short break. That's Rick I, bluecanwater.com. We're talking about I Can, You Can, Blue Can. He's in Los Angeles joining us by Skype. This is ThinkTech Talks. We'll be back in 1 minute. Aloha, I'm Jay Fidell for ThinkTech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaiian Foreign Trade Zone, number 9, has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBED, the Hawaii Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program. It does so to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Jay Fidell of ThinkTech. Mahalo.
Oh my.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here with Rick I, EYE, from bluecanwater.com. We're talking about I Can, You Can, Blue Can, mostly about pure water in cans, by which we can maybe save ourselves. He's in Los Angeles, joining us by Skype, and we're here in Honolulu. I'm Jay Fidell, and here at ThinkTech Talks at the 1 to 2 p.m. block here on a given Tuesday. Anyway, Rick, we've been skirting this issue, need to get to it, and that is the miracle of plastics. I remember Dustin Hoffman in The Graduate, wasn't it? And his prospective father-in-law or somebody is going to say, young man, I advise you to get into plastics. And it makes us remember that plastics are not that old. I mean, we invented plastics only, in the 20s or 30s of the 20th century. And since then, we've been living on plastics everywhere in the world, a huge amount of plastics, and it's not biodegradable. So these water bottles that precede Blue Can, are all about plastic. What's your thought on their effect on the environment?
Well, just to put things in perspective, let me give you just a minute of history on plastic. In the 1900s, early 1900s, right before 1920, the owner of Standard Oil, John D. Rockefeller, was concerned that kerosene was going out, and he wanted to find another use for oil. So he put his chemists all together to figure out something. They found gasoline, which was really good, which he started using. They also found some other things. They found polymers and petroleum jelly and stuff. And they started mixing this and making these objects out of it that were quite strong and durable. And it was the beginnings of plastics. And then, of course, the invention of Tupperware, where the Tupper figured out how to actually change these polymers so that they could be used and heated, and they don't degrade, and they bounce, they don't crack, they don't break. They're a miracle. And in the 50s and 60s, these were the miracle products that everybody had in their homes. We moved from, I remember actually tin and aluminum glasses in the 50s and 60s, but we moved to plastic very quickly. And you go to a restaurant today, you can't get a glass. It's all plastic. Well, these plastics, the problem with them, the major problem is that a plastic bottle is made from literally oil. It's petroleum. It takes about 3.5 ounces of black oil to make a single bottle that you drink the water out of. It takes, I believe the number is 4 gallons of water to process the manufacturing steps to make a plastic bottle, if I remember correctly, to make the pellets and then to make the bottles and form them and everything. And these plastics, you cannot take a group of plastic bottles that you have and melt them down and make new plastic bottles. All plastic bottles are made from new petroleum. You can't use the old plastic. They call it contaminated. And by contaminated, what they mean is if you were to cut the plastic up and break it down, it's got particles of other stuff, both the fungus and the bacteria that live in the plastic and around the plastic.
So plastic is porous then?
Yes, plastic is porous. That was my next point. Plastic is like a screen door. There's things that can go into the water bottle and out of the water bottle and into the container, out of the container. Do you ever seal something in a Ziploc bag or in a plastic bottle or a plastic jar, put it in a refrigerator, and a month later you find it, and everything in your refrigerator smells like whatever was in that jar, like kimchi or something? It's because plastic is porous. Things move in and out, not only odors, but bacteria and fungus and everything else. And you can't take old plastic bottles and make new plastic bottles. The only thing you can make out of it is maybe some railroad ties. You know, up until September 1st of this year, 2013, we were sending our excess plastic bottles by the barge load to China. And on September 1st, China said, whoa, stop. We don't want any more. And they will no longer take our recyclable, supposedly, plastic bottles because they're not recyclable. Less than 8% of all plastic bottles are ever recycled, and that's to make lawn furniture and some railroad ties. So
they happen to make very good railroad ties, though.
You make great railroad ties, but who do you know that's building a new railroad lately?
And buggy whips too, I think.
Exactly. So it's unfortunately it's a wonderful product that we all embraced and we thought was great. And don't get me started on the plastic bags that are floating in the ocean.
No,
and
I do want to get you started on that. I want people to know about that.
It drives me insane. It takes a quarter. There's a quarter-sized piece of plastic. I talked to the inventor of the machine about 20 years ago. A quarter-sized piece of plastic. It's white, and they put this in a machine and they press it so hard that it blow air into it. And it creates these shopping bags that we use in the grocery stores. And these bags do not biodegrade. They do not biodegrade. Biodegrade means, if you look it up in a dictionary, it means it's something that breaks apart into its individual components that are then utilized within the biosystem. Plastics do not biodegrade. They become smaller and smaller spheroids, balls. And these smaller spheroids, the smaller they get, the more toxic they are. Because in a landfill, when you've got all this pressure and heat and this cooker, basically, of this plastic products that they fill it up with dirt and they cover it constantly, and it generates this heat and methane comes off of it from the biodegradable stuff. But the plastics themselves, they don't biodegrade. They break into smaller spheroids. And eventually they do break down. As they break down, it takes about 100 years, but as they start to break down, 1,000 years for them to become micron size. And when they get to that size, they go into our water table. And then the water table, and then when you water your plants and you're eating your broccoli, it's already 25% plastic. You know that the CDC, the out of Atlanta, which tests for bacterial diseases and infections and keeps track of our health. The CDC in Atlanta tested 3,000 people from all over the country. And what they discovered is that every single one of us has tiny spheroids of plastic in our blood already. And that's increasing all the time, and it's causing various diseases, and it's also causing the appearance of diseases.
Is it carcinogenic?
They haven't proved that yet. I can't say that because they haven't proved it for sure yet. But I'm telling you, you get enough plastic in your blood and something's going to happen. Something's going to get clogged up. Something's going to get backed up.
I remember the scare about, I guess it was plastic soda bottles and water bottles left out in the sun. Do you remember that a year or two ago?
Yes.
And the idea was that if you left your plastic water bottle out in the sun and the beverage in there got warm, then the beverage would dissolve the plastic. You would drink the beverage and you would have something really pernicious going on, and it was carcinogenic.
That's BPA. Yeah, they've taken BPA out of as many, the chemical BPA is a glue. And it's the glue that holds the plastic particles together. And they've taken it out of most products that normally they shouldn't have it. Like anything polycarbonate, if you buy a polycarbonate plastic bottle, that's essentially made out of BPA. And all baby bottles were made out of polycarbonate since the early 1990s, okay? And that polycarbonate was BPA, so you're feeding your baby BPA in the milk or whatever you put into the baby bottle. Now, as far as the sun's concerned in the plastic, here's what occurs. It's actually a photoelectric effect that when the plastic, ultraviolet light impacts the plastic. Ultraviolet light is a very high speed particles. These particles bombard the elements of the plastic and knock those plastic particles into the water. And then when you heat the bottle, when the bottle gets really hot, the BPA and other plastic, they call fumes, come off of the plastic and go into the water as well. Hey, do you know that new car smell you get whenever you buy a new car smell that everybody loves so much? The car industry sold us that new car smell, but you know what that is? That's the fumes of the plastic in the carpeting and in the dash and everything coming off the car. And those are fumes that are toxic. And they sold that to us, and we have to have it now in every single car.
You'd probably buy a spray can of new car smell.
Buy a bottle of new car smell. That's marketing, my friend. That's marketing. I wish I was that good.
Well, you talked before about before we went online. You talked about these large hunks of plastic that float around in the ocean.
Yeah.
And I remember I mentioned to you that in the news here in Hawaii a couple of weeks ago, there was a whale that somehow ingested a plastic bag, a large plastic bag, and this whale got sick. And it was, not natural causes, and wound up dying on the beach. It was very, sad because everybody likes, seals, if I didn't say. And when they opened them up, they found out that this large plastic bag was suffocating everything. So, the point is that there's a lot of plastic out there in the ocean, and I think it's killing a lot of sea life. What do you know about this?
Well, there are two islands of plastic. The oceans and the way the currents work. In the Pacific Ocean, there's a rotary flow that flows around the Pacific, and there's the center part of that, like your bathtub drain, things sort of congregate there. And that's exactly between California and Hawaii. It just so happens. And it last reported it was about twice the size of Texas. It sits a few inches below the surface of the water. So if you're out there in a boat, you don't even see it, except for a bag every once in a while it'll float up to the top. But what you don't see is 20 feet of plastic particles and plastic junk sitting just below the surface in the ocean. And there's one in the Atlantic and one in the Pacific. And the fish, a lot of the plastic, as it breaks down under the solar energy, the sun starts to break down these plastic particles. Fish eat it because it looks very much like the food that they like, the algae that sits at the surface of the water. It's the same size, same texture, and in the sunlight it looks the same. So the fish eat this, and they also eat the small plastic particles. And then birds come along, and they'll pick up things out of that water and feed it to their baby chicks. And if you go on the internet, you'll be able to find animals. Just search toxic animals or toxic plastics and animals. I've seen bird nests that had 3 little piles of plastic and feathers and bones in it, where the mother had been feeding the babies plastic and they died from lack of nutrition. And on the beaches all over the world now, there are seagulls that people take pictures of that are sitting there, and the bones and the meat and it's all degraded, but the plastic, little pile of plastic where the stomach was, still exists. And it's happening in fish. They're cutting open fish and finding particles of plastic in their stomachs and their food systems. And these tiny particles are in the fish, the meat of the fish. So we're eating those plastic particles as we eat fish from the ocean. I mean, this is going to smother us in a way. We're going to be. George Carlin had the best line. He said that, God created the earth and everything on it and everything, except he had a problem. He couldn't create plastic. No matter what he did, he couldn't get it to form right. So he created humans to create the plastic for him. And now that the humans have done that, he's done with the humans, now he's going to wipe us out. So.
Well, this is only beginning because, the fish are being fished out. There are fewer fish.
Yeah.
The plastic is being, generated at a rate that it was never generated before.
Yeah.
We have huge amounts of plastic. You wonder why somebody doesn't go into the ocean and start, netting this, like scooping it out of the ocean, both the Atlantic and the Pacific, and getting rid of it so we don't kill all the fish.
It's not profitable. They can't figure out a way to make any money at it. And people are driven so much by the god-awful dollar that that's all they care about anymore. And I'm an entrepreneur. I've been building businesses for 35 years, and I've made some money and lost some money. But I don't live by the dollar. I live by what I can do. I was head of technology for Walt Disney Studios for 5.5 years. And during that time, I invented the long-form nonlinear editing. Basically, it's the ability to edit on a computer anything longer than 30 seconds.
Oh, that's quite something. That's a major discovery.
Yeah, and it took me a year to do that while I was head of R&D at Disney Channel. And, I like to make changes to the world. And recently, we were looking for changes, and my partner and I, James, my business partner, we've done quite a few things, and we're interested in doing something ecological, but couldn't figure out what. And then one day we started talking about all these things you and I are talking about, toxicity of plastic. And that carried over that night. I picked up my 17-year-old son for dinner, and I'm talking about it. I'm still going on. I don't turn off easily. And I'm going,
That's okay.
That's
okay.
After about 5 minutes, he's heard it before. So after about 5 minutes, he goes, why doesn't somebody just put water in aluminum cans? And I go, that's an interesting idea. Let's look it up. So we started research. This was January 6, 2013. By April 1st, we had these cans rolling off the assembly line.
So my question for you now, Rick, is where is it going? We only have a couple of minutes left.
Yeah.
Where are you going to take this? I mean, it strikes me, and I'm just an observer, but it strikes me that in the end, given the use that you contemplate for these cans of water, you're going to make bigger cans of water to be, more efficient in the canning process. Is that in the pipeline? Excuse the expression. Or what else is in the pipeline?
Absolutely, it is. These pocket factories that I discussed earlier, where we build a factory that provides water for farming and provides cans for the local community, provides fountains for people to get water in areas that don't have water, desalinated water that we pre-process. These are going to be very important in rebuilding the water table. But we have some of our consumers now ask us for a screw top bottle. So after the first year, we'll start manufacturing a screw top bottle that looks like a normal plastic bottle, but it's made of aluminum. It has a screw top on it. It's a reusable bottle. So you buy a package of them, and they're expensive. They're going to be a couple bucks a piece, but you buy them and you can reuse them and put your filtered water from your home in it for a while. You just have to be careful to clean out the bottles. Like these stainless steel bottles that you can buy to use for a water bottle, which is eco-friendly, supposedly.
Yeah.
Well, these stainless steel bottles, after about a week, start to get a fungus buildup in the bottle. You have to wash them like baby bottles. You got to wash them out and clean them every once in a while. And our bottles will be acceptable for that. You'll be able to reuse them a number of times, not just once or twice.
So how will that expand your market?
Well, it's a slow process. Jay, you can't change a paradigm overnight. There's 65 billion plastic bottles sold in America alone every single year. And all of these go into landfills except for a small percentage of them. And on the bottle, it'll say recyclable. But it is recyclable. If you could figure out a way to do it economically, somebody would do it. Mm-hmm. And we're expanding our market. We're going into the preppers. We're going into the people that care about their families when a disaster does occur, because I guarantee it will occur. I don't care where you live, whether it's a snowstorm or electrical fire or outage or a tsunami or a flood or whatever, it will occur. So we have a foundation we created to pre-stage water. We're working with water districts to start pre-staging water in containers so that when it happens, water's there immediately. And that I'm on a really almost a religious campaign to make that happen. And it's going to take years. It's going to take decades.
No, you know what though? It sounds like to me it'll accelerate as the price of water goes up and as the crisis around fresh water goes up. They'll be beating a path to your door. That's Rick I. He's at bluecanwater.com. We've been talking about Blue Can Water and its future, its present possibilities and its future in the world. We're calling this I Can, You Can, Blue Can with Rick I. And we are looking forward to talking to him again as time goes by, because we know that we'll be hearing more about Blue Can Water. Thank you so much, Rick.
Thank you, Jay, my friend. I really, really honestly appreciate it. Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure.
Same here. Aloha.